Okay, so one surprising consequence of these four simple postulates. Let's see one more. So for the rest of the time, we're going to be talking more about measurement. And I'm going to jump back now, after the fun of entanglement, to chapter 2.2.4, the topic of which is distinguishing quantum states. So again, in sort of classical physics, very trivial task, you prepare me a physical system, I can just measure the thing, I can, open the box, so to speak, and see what's inside. And if you're sending me a set of states, multiple states, I can look at them and reliably distinguish them with no problem. In quantum, that's, again, not going to be true. So another surprising consequence, this one having to do with measurement. So postulate 3. Let's see the setup here. We'll again have our friends Alice and Bob. So what Alice is going to do is going to choose a state, which we'll label psi sub I, from a set of possible states where I is going from 1, say, up to little n, and send to Bob the responsibility of Bob is going to be to determine I, and I'm going to say reliably determine I, that is to say which state Alice sent, by measuring. It's the only way he's going to be able to do that. So there's two cases here. The first case is going to be that all the states which Alice is considering preparing are orthogonal. And we could call these orthonormal if we wanted to, because they're going to be valid quantum states. They're going to have unit norm. But just orthogonal is the key thing for us. In this case, it is going to be possible for Bob to reliably distinguish what state I was sent. And I'll say more what I mean by reliably distinguish them once we get the intuition from these examples. So in this case, what Bob can do is the following. If all the psi I are orthogonal, let's have Bob define the following measurement. Remember, I defined measurements in our postulate 3 by a collection of operators. And so let's define the set of measurements as mi being equal to the outer product psi I going from 1 to the number of states that we have, n. So a question for you, is this a valid quantum measurement? This one might be a little tricky, but you would refer back to the postulate. It's close to being a valid quantum measurement. It captures the intuition of what we want to do in this process. The only thing we need to be careful about is adding one more operator, which I'll label M0, such that the completeness equation is true. Remember, these operators, as we've stated it in postulate 3, only have to satisfy one condition, that is the completeness relation. So just summing up over all of these itself might not add up to identity. But if I add in the extra operator, M0, being equal to the square root of identity minus the sum of all the previous ones, mi dagger mi, then this will guarantee that the completeness relationship is satisfied. Because when I do m0 dagger m0, the square root will go away. And then I have identity here minus the sum of all the previous measurement operators. Okay? So in order for this to be a valid quantum measurement, I need to include this extra measurement operator. But this captures the intuition of what we want to do. Let's see how this works. So in this case, the probability of obtaining measurement outcome I will be equal to, if we're in the state psi I, there's going to be exactly one of these measurement operators which returns a probability of 1, and all the other ones will return a probability of 0. So let's write that down. So there's going to exist some m sub I such that this is equal to 1. And for all other operators, all other measurement outcomes in the state psi I, I'll use the index j to indicate that, this is going to return 0. Why is it going to return 0? Who could tell me? By assumption of orthogonality. Excellent. So the psi I are orthogonal. We've constructed these projectors. And so for all j not equal to I here, we're going to have an inner product, two inner products actually, between psi j and psi I. That's going to give us 0. So this is what I mean by reliably. It means that with probability 1, Bob is able to say, hey, you sent the state I, or psi sub I. Does everyone see that? So this is a case that sort of follows the same intuition as classical physics. But the second case is that the states are not orthogonal, and that's totally fine in quantum mechanics. In this case, it's going to be impossible for Bob to do this. Okay? Very surprising thing. So in the second case, where psi I are not orthogonal, or just arbitrary, you can formally prove that no measurement can distinguish, reliably distinguish these states. So the theorem is no valid measurement can reliably determine the index I, which is to say which state that Alice actually sent. The proof of this, or a more rigorous discussion, will be in box 2.3 on page 87, which I'm not going to go through, but I do want to give you the intuition. Let's consider the following example just to get some traction and see what's going on. So let's suppose that Alice is just considering sending two states, psi 1 being equal to the 0 state, which hopefully by now we know and love, and psi 2 being equal to the plus states, which hopefully we know and love as 0 plus 1 over the square root of 2. Okay? So a particular example of this setting with two non-orthogonal states. Everyone agrees that these are not orthogonal, right? Excellent. So now you would try to think, okay, I'm Bob. What measurements can I define? What measurements can I do in order to try to determine this? I'm looking at the state psi 1, and I see that it's 0. So I would like to try to use this strategy where I define the first measurement projector as the projector onto the 0 state. Right? It's intuitive. In this case, I know that if psi 1 is sent, then this psi 1, m1 dagger, m1 psi 1 will be equal to 1, which is to say the probability of measuring the outcome 1, defined by this measurement operator m sub 1, will be 1. Okay, so that's great. If the state psi 1, which is the ket 0 state, is sent, I'll always measure the first outcome with 100% probability. But what if the state psi 2 is sent? So let's suppose that psi 2 is sent now. If psi 2 is sent, the probability of measuring outcome 1 is still going to be given by this, but I changed the state to be psi 2. So it's psi 2, m1 dagger, m1, psi 2. Could anyone look at this and tell me what it's equal to? It's not going to be 0. Good guess. We would, if it was 0, we would like that to be the case, because then we could reliably distinguish. You can't use the normalization condition the sum of the measurement outcome probabilities being 1 here, because, which you might be thinking, because I'm changing the state from psi1 to psi2. Yep. So when we fix a state, the sum of all the measurement outcome probabilities has to be equal to 1. But be careful, here I'm changing the state. The first question I asked is, what happens when we have psi1? Now I'm asking what happens when we have psi2. So that changes the state in this equation. So this will work out to be 1/2, actually. Let's see why that is. I'll give you kind of the abbreviated version. So M1 dagger is just going to be M1. Why is that? Just flip the order. It's the same thing. Furthermore, M1 times M1 is still going to be M1. Why is that? 0 inner product, 0 in the middle. Comes out to be 1. Then I have 0 outer product, 0. So this whole thing is psi2, 0, 0, psi2. And when you work this out, I'm going to get 2 terms on the left, 2 terms on the right. One on the left is going to give me a 1 over root 2. One on the right is going to give me a 1 over root 2. So that will be 1/2. Okay. So now we go backwards. So, suppose I measured the outcome 1. I can't reliably say which state was sent because there's a non-zero probability in both of these cases. The non-orthogonality, you see why that's key here, is because this works out to be non-zero. So because both have a non-zero probability, there's no way to reliably determine which state was sent. Okay? So again, formal discussion and a proof, box 2.3. But really, this is the intuition that you need to understand what's going on here.